Pigweed here. Today we review a IPA and discuss a South American novella. Hello and welcome to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crow Hill. Good evening, Crow Hill.
Good evening, Pigweed.
What's on your mind?
Delgadina and Rosa Cabarcas.
I see. It must be time for P&C's shortcut to the classics.
Yes, where we read the great books by the world's great authors, provided that they aren't too long.
Yes, exactly. And this one comes in right around 100 pages, like we like it.
Yes, yeah.
And it is Memories of My Melancholy Horrors by Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Yes, very good.
So, thinking something South American, summer, fruity. Mm. How about a beer with grapefruit in it?
Do they have grapefruits in South America?
Yes, they do.
I don't know.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're also a big fan of Squirt, the soda.
Oh.
Which is it's a grapefruit flavored soda.
Okay.
But you don't see it as much here. Wait a minute, what does we have 3 beers here for?
Woo! Yeah, here we go.
Longinus is here.
Longinus is here joining us.
Okay, of course he
help
is.
Keep us on track. With
yes, when it comes to
literary things.
Things are literary. All right, well, go ahead, give it a try. Tell me what you think here.
So this is Cru Cab India Pale Ale with grapefruit extract, and you can smell the grapefruit for sure. This is from Big Truck, just across the bridge over there in Maryland.
And Houston Shore. And
very pale?
Yeah, very pale. Ooh, gosh, it's Budweiser pale. Mm-hmm. Very clear. Mm-hmm. None of that hazy stuff. And
strong grapefruit smell, strong grapefruit flavor.
All right.
It's it's a nice, refreshing beer. This is a good, except for the fact that it's 6.3. This would be a good fishing beer.
Right, you're going. Oh, what a great summer beer! I'd pound half a dozen of these.
Yeah, no,
these are
not 6.3s. But it's good. It's very nice. I like it. Good smell. Good flavor.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, because there are certain grapefruit-like flavors you can get from the proper hops, Cascade, and some of those West Coast beers have that. But this is just straight up grapefruit extract dumped right in the fermenter, I guess.
Yeah. We need to have a field trip
and
find out.
That's pretty nice.
All right, so Memories of My Melancholy Horse.
Yes, well, the very first thing I must say is I lost my book. Mm-hmm. I couldn't find it, and I turned to Mrs. Pigweed, whose first language is Spanish, and I said, it's a thin book. It's kind of tannish, and it's by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. She says, Marquez. I was like, what? I've heard it I've heard Marquez 1,000 times, and there it is. There's the accent right on the A.
Marquez, yeah.
It's just one of those things that it's like Tijuana. It's like every English speaker makes that mistake, and every English speaker makes this mistake. So how are you supposed
to say Tijuana?
Tijuana. There's no A. It's just Tijuana.
Tijuana. Okay.
I
never noticed.
Yeah, there's no A, and I've never heard a non-Spanish speaker not stick the A in there because I don't know why.
It's like the silly Brits saying aluminium. Where'd you get those extra syllables from?
Right. and we just insert Tijuana, like your Aunt Juana.
Yeah.
But there's no such thing, and it's Marquez.
So it's Marquez. All right.
And they put the accent on there just so you don't.
Yeah.
Just to make sure you know what you're supposed to be saying, and we don't do it anyway.
Okay, here we go.
Right. How about a little bio?
Yeah.
So, born in 1927, died in 2014. He's from Colombia, although he lived his later years in Mexico City. His biggies were 100 Years of Solitude in 1967, Love in the Time of Cholera in 1985, and he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1982. The book we're reading was basically his last.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this was 2014, so he was 77. It was 10 years before his death, and so.
And the sad thing about this book's about a 90-year-old. He didn't even get the 90.
He did not get the 90. But as we'll get to, it's about an old man reflecting on his life, and you could see
makes sense.
Right, a 40-year-old man just probably wouldn't be successful in writing a book.
Writing about a 90-year-old.
Writing about a 90-year-old.
So here's a question for you: How many 90-year-olds do you think you know personally? 90-year-old men.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I know a couple.
I got a dad that's pushing it, but
yeah, I know a couple, but not a lot. How about you?
Yeah, just a couple.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of 90-year-old men. Getting to be 90 is quite an accomplishment.
And they're probably at the retirement home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, but what does our protagonist do at age on a birthday? Well, we'll just read the first line of the first line of the entire book, and it sets up the entire thing about what our protagonist, unnamed
protagonist. The year I turned 90, I wanted to give myself the gift of a night of wild love with an adolescent virgin.
Okay. Okie dokie.
Well,
That's what you want to do when you're 90?
Good for you.
Most of the 90-year-olds that I know, that would not be on the top of their list. Top of their list would I want to have a good bowel movement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And stay up and past 8. But no, so we have a vigorous narrator who is still working. He's a writer, he's a journalist.
That's all he's ever done. There's a line here, the only thing I've ever done is writing.
So how does he go about achieving this?
So he knows a madam at a whorehouse named Rosa Cabarcas. She's the owner of the brothel, and he works with her to.
He's right. Which he's frequented all of his life, but it seems like there's about a 20-year gap.
Yeah.
Right. Been about 20 years since he's called her up, and he's all right. This is the day. Tell you what I want.
Mm-hmm. And then she's got to go find.
And he's like, yeah. And by the way, tonight. Because this is his birthday.
I'm 90 years old. I need to do it tonight. I might not do it
I might
tomorrow
not do it. Right. What does he say? He says, at my age, a day is like a year. She's like, it might take me 2 or 3 days. He's thinking, I'm not sure if I got.
Right.
I'm not necessarily certain I'll have 2 or 3 days. Anyways, she
comes through. She comes through and brings somebody for him. And
also unnamed.
Also unnamed, although he gives her a name.
Delgadina.
Yeah, Delgadita, isn't it?
But Delgada is thin, slender, and so it'd be like my little skinny one or something like that. So with a little bit of of affection.
Okay. So now we have to set a little bit of background for this guy. He's 90 years old.
Yeah.
He says, I've never gone to bed with a woman I didn't pay.
Yes.
And the few who weren't in the profession, I persuaded by argument or force to take money from me, even if they threw it in the trash.
All right, so this is
the kind of guy we're dealing with.
This is the kind of guy we're dealing with. He's living in the house that he was born in. He's still sleeping and plans to die alone in the bed that he was born in.
He's got some huge collection of books. He's a very literary guy.
Yes, very smart. The house. He lives in the rich side of town in a house that was beautiful, but he's never really made any money from his writing.
Yeah.
And the place has gone into, is deteriorating, and rain's coming in.
Another thing interesting about him is he's a favorite of caricaturists because of my exemplary ugliness.
Yes.
Apparently exemplary ugly, but well endowed. We learned, those are some of the few things we learned about him physically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's an old man, and this is what he wants to do. So why do you think he wants to do this for his 90th birthday?
Yes, because the outcome is not what he was planning for. It's not like, I know that what happens, his falling in love, is his intention.
It's not his intention. As far as I know. I mean, you don't really know what his intention is.
Why would it? Right. Why would it be? As far as I can tell, he. What? I mean, are you still? All of us want to feel younger than we are, and we feel that we're younger than we are. I mean, I feel like I dream all the time about still being in a college dorm, and almost feel like I could pull it off until I'm in the mall and walk by a mirror. I'm like, is that what everybody sees? Because that's not. I don't feel like that guy at all.
That's right.
But for this guy, you would think that you would have come to terms with your mortality long before the age of 90. Like, I just want to feel young and strong again. Well, dude, you're 90.
Yeah. So one thing that I find interesting about this is he says that he wants a virgin. Now, why would a man want a virgin? And I'm bringing this up because it actually came up in college in an English class one time.
Okay.
And there was this story we were reading where some guy, wanted a virgin, and the teacher was asking, why? Why does
Okay,
why,
good question.
Why does a man prefer a virgin? Because on the one hand, you might think a woman with some experience,
Yeah.
it might be easier than somebody who doesn't know what the heck's going on.
Right.
Right.
And so one woman in the class said, well, it's because of men's delicate sense of self-esteem. They don't want to be worse than the other guy.
Okay.
I thought that was a funny comment. But,
Pretty good.
But
Right.
but
You're right. There's no one to be compared to. Is that-
yeah. And then a guy in the class said, well, you don't want to use somebody else's towel, which I thought was a little rough. But it is an interesting question. Why would a man want a virgin?
Yes. So you're 90 and you're going. Well, even old whores are 30 years younger than you are.
Yeah.
So
More than
why do you have to go all the way down to 14?
Well, I also think as a literary technique, it's almost a premonition, because as we talk more about the book as we go forward, it's really him exploring love the best way he can, and there wasn't really love in his life except for when his mother loved him, I think.
Yeah.
It sounded like, but that was it. So the whole idea of a virgin is somebody who's never done it. It's always in the future. This is always something to look at. It's a potential that I think he falls in love with.
Yeah, so he has this long. He's 90. He has this long history of frequenting whorehouses.
Yes.
Right? That's
he said
always
514 by the age of 50. That's a lot. And then I don't know. They stopped writing them down. Yeah.
I don't know. That's
right. But not 514 encounters. 514 different women that he strictly paid for, and he said that he was terrible at the art of seducing, and so does it make him and an ugly man, as he says.
Yeah.
So
I think
him not finding him saying that he has not found love. I never got the feeling that he worked very hard at that part.
Yeah.
I think he was just always like, you know what? I'll just take an ugly one and pay the money, and I'm not that worried about the love part.
So I get the impression that this whole, it says memories of my melancholy horse, but it's really just about this one.
Yeah.
And the thing that's interesting is here is possibly the one time in his entire life where he's trying to have a relationship with a virgin. And it's also the one time in his entire life that he falls in love.
Right, but I don't think. But he wasn't trying. Sorry, so let's do the whole story. He wasn't trying to fall. It wasn't trying to fall in love with her.
No.
So he finally makes the arrangements with Rosa Cabarcas, and he comes to the room. And first off, she works all day long sewing buttons. Mm-hmm. And also, the Madame Rosa figures it would be easiest on her to help her relax, and gave her some sort
of sedative,
some sort of sedative.
Right.
So he comes in, and she even suggests, you know what, just take her while she's asleep. It'll be easy. It'll be easier on her all the way around.
But he doesn't do that.
But he doesn't do that, and he just spends the night looking at her.
He doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Except for
doesn't he snuggle and spoon her a little bit, maybe? But
I don't think so. I think he's just basically looking at her, and nothing goes on.
And the next day, Rosa's like, "What?
Right.
You didn't do anything?"
Yeah.
He says, now, I'm insulted. Now she's going to be offended, and you just ruined everything. And he said, I don't know. I feel like making the move.
There's something going on here. It's a little odd. There's some transition going on in this old guy's
and
life.
He's going, that's certainly not like me. The heck is going on here? And so what we have is a year-long series really, of him courting her in her sleep.
Yes.
So each time she is naked, facing the wall,
Yeah.
and asleep. And what is he doing?
It's like bringing things into the room, paintings on the wall and various kinds of things. It's kind of
Listening
strange.
to classical music.
Yeah, I mean, he's very right. He's very well read. Has taught Latin in
I think
his
he
life.
reads to her.
He reads to her,
Right.
And he decorates the room. He plays classical music, explains it to her. He hangs paintings from his house that he brings into the brothel, and it puts a little pep in his step. All right, so at his 90th birthday, let's do his birthday party.
His birthday party.
So at the
at his job.
Yeah,
so
at his job.
He is senior employee at his newspaper,
where he had been the editor for 40 years, but
Yeah.
now he's just a weekly column.
and there's a picture on the wall
Yeah,
of all
this is
the
important.
old employees, and all of them have little crosses through them except for him because they're all dead. So,
Yeah, so this is him, witnessing, his mortality. He was there when the paper, it was like the 10th anniversary of the paper, whatever, and almost everybody's gone. Well, one guy's still alive, but he's in jail for multiple homicides, so he's the only one still around. And they, I don't know, they give him some cute gifts. A cat he didn't really want, and
Right.
But he takes the cat.
but the cat becomes important in this story.
yes. They're like, and actually, he had to go pick up the cat at the vet, I think, right?
Yeah.
So
And it was an old cat.
yeah, an old cat, kind of like him, and so he, with the idea of retiring on this date, and the editor comes to him and says, "Where's your column?" During his birthday party.
And what he had in his pocket was a letter of resignation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So his plan was on his 90th birthday, 14-year-old virgin and retire, and we'll see what happens. And what
Didn't really
happens
work out
is
that way.
it didn't. Neither of them worked out. The editor's like, dude, you can't retire. Well, this experience with
Delgadina.
Delgadina has put a new pep in his step,
Mm-hmm.
and his writing gets better. Right, he becomes kind of famous around town.
It's not
For his love columns, everybody is seeing this love that is being exuded out of his columns.
Well, there's actually an important quote about that, but I want to look at page 45 here.
Yeah.
He's talking to Rosa Cabarcas, and he says, "Look, nothing happened. I hung up the phone, filled with a sense of liberation I hadn't known before in my life, and free at last of a servitude that had kept me enslaved since the age of 13.
Okay,
Isn't that interesting?
that is a great line.
So he apparently, here it is at 90, thinking, apparently 13 was when he first had an encounter in
At a brothel.
at a brothel.
Right.
Yeah. And he says he characterizes it as a servitude, and now he has this sense of liberation after having been with this girl and not even touching her.
And not even touching her.
Right.
That is very interesting.
It is very interesting. But then what you're raising there, Longinus, is he started to write his Sunday column as if he was writing love letters to
Right.
Delgadina.
Right.
And not only that, it wasn't just that he was writing them to her, is they were being printed in his own handwriting. Rather than
That's
being
right.
typeset, he would write them out by hand, and they would print them in his handwriting.
Okay.
You remember that? I mean, that was pretty interesting.
I forgot about that.
So
That's good.
it becomes much more interesting in a couple of ways. It's got, it's his actual handwriting, and he's writing these love letters, and it makes his column much more popular, and all
Yes.
people love it. And
Yes,
very
she
interesting.
becomes his muse, and
Right.
he. So he got this pep in his step. He buys her a bicycle,
Yes, to get.
but he
to get
still
to
has
work,
he still hasn't seen her face. Still doesn't know her name,
Right.
and it's all going pretty good. And he's not anxious to consummate this thing. Why? Because he knows that's what's going to ruin this
the
feeling
There are
that
some
he's
interesting
never
quotes
had,
about
right?
that. One thing he says, the first love of my life at the age of 90. That he had never loved anybody.
Yeah.
And then there's another place, I don't know the exact quote, but it was something like, sex is what you get instead of love, or something
Yes,
like that.
yeah,
Remember
yeah,
that?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sex is what you get when you can't get love. So here it is. Sex is the consolation you have when you can't have love.
You're right.
Yeah. So he is obviously going through some pretty serious transformation in his life. His whole life, he's not loved anybody, and he's only paid women for sex, and he's been going to prostitutes all this time. And now he doesn't have sex with this girl, and he falls in love with her.
But he has had one important woman in his life, Damiana.
Oh, yes.
So we might as well mention her.
Right. I mean, it was he had a
housekeeper.
fiance. He was going to
Oh
get
yeah,
married.
that's right.
do that
Yeah.
first. Yes, right.
So, and it was a Z's, what was her name?
Right.
Some woman who...
Ximena Ortiz.
Yeah, so
Ximena Ortiz.
she really wanted him. He accidentally opens a door and sees her naked and, like, leaves. But she
Sort of
She
like,
pursues him.
She pursues him. She like turns around and exposes herself to him,
you like
and then
that.
pursues him, and they become engaged.
Right, and he had promised his mother that he would get married and have kids so he could have a daughter to name after her.
Right.
And he lets down mom. And
Well, he
sorry, what does he? So what does he do at his wedding?
Doesn't even go to the wedding.
he wakes up, the morning of the wedding days, he just stays in bed.
Yeah, he never leaves.
Never leaves.
I think her brothers show up and he's like, I'm out. So he had a shot, and yeah, so that was his first failed attempt, and then Damiana, who is his housekeeper.
His housekeeper. Yeah. He ends up having relations with her in some sense, and she seems to love him, but nothing ever comes of it.
No, he suddenly mounts her from behind,
Right.
and she says, "Oh, senor," with a mournful lament. That was made for coming, not made for coming in, but for going out.
Yeah, that was kind of
So you
disturbing.
kind of get the idea, and because he's so used to paying for sex, that he just raised the amount of her monthly salary. He feel like that would accommodate his monthly mounting,
Yes.
which, far as I can tell, was not just from behind, but in behind.
It's yes, that's what it seems like, and it's pretty disturbing. I mean, the guy,
And she's still with it. She's still. I don't know how early this starts.
Yeah, at the end, she's still there, right?
She's still there when he's 90.
Right.
Right, and he actually says, "Well, let's go do it." And she's like, "Oh, what would you do if I said yes?" Right towards the end.
Right, and she says, I'm still a virgin, which is what lets you know that.
Yeah, it was always from behind.
It was always from behind.
So here, there's this one quote on page 71. I want to get your opinion on. He's talking about Delgadina, and he says it troubled me that she was real enough to have birthdays. That really jumped out at me. It's like, okay, it troubled me that she was real enough. Did he think that she wasn't real? Was she just an image? Was she a vision? What was she supposed to be that he thought, this isn't a real human being with birthdays and things like that?
Yeah, well, he probably just, dehumanized all of his whores over the year, and now she finally seems like a real person. And she mentions the Sagittarius, which is but he had been writing on the only communication he had with her was writing on the mirror in lipstick, little notes.
That's right, because they never talked, right? I mean,
No.
for like the whole year.
There's hardly any dialogue between them at all. It's very strange. He falls in love with this girl who he's never even spoken with.
Well, I think that. I mean, I think that's a clue to say, did he fall in love or did he fall in something else with this girl?
Yeah. So
Well, I mean, to me, that is falling in love with the idea, right? So you're not a real person. You like, actually, I think a good definition of a romantic as someone who loves the idea of love. And so I think and then leaving her without a real face, without actually consummating anything, without a name, is the only, like, he can't connect with real human beings.
Yes.
But he
can only connect with
the idea.
With this idea.
Yes, and that's why. So, sort of yeah, that's a good point. So, the recognition of the birthday is like, oh, and she's also a real person.
Yeah. Well, here's on page 77. He says, "I preferred her asleep."
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like they actually did end up talking, but he said, "I didn't like that."
And here's a great quote. And in them, I became aware of the invincible power that has moved the world is unrequited, not happy love.
Yeah. So, speaking of her, I prefer her asleep. The quote before the book starts is a quote from Sleeping Beauty, or
House
the story
of the Sleeping Beauties.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was not to do anything in bad taste. The woman of the inn warned old Eguchi. He was not to put his finger into the mouth of the sleeping girl or try anything else of that sort. Yeah.
So there is a kind of fairy tale-ness
Yes.
to the book, and this early reference to Sleeping Beauty, you can see, right? She is just lying there, and don't go sticking things into her. Leave the poor gal alone and just admire her and feel what love is like. So
or what he thinks love is like, right?
well, as close as he's going to get. So
Right.
so now are we up to the murder? So this goes on for nearly a year,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
and then so the reason that this brothel is the madam of this brothel feels untouchable is because all the higher ups in the politics and whatever
Yeah. Are her clients.
are her
So
clients,
yes.
and so this is no big deal.
Which is the standard thing in any story where there's a brothel. isn't it?
Yeah.
Some relationship with the
Speaking
cops.
of brothels, I'll get to that. So this is an important person, a banker who was murdered in the brothel.
Right.
And he is asked to help clean up the mess a little bit.
Yeah.
Help
And-
clothe him, right?
yeah.
Put the clothes back on.
Put the clothes back on. He's like, who's going to believe that?
Apparently, it's hard to put clothes on a dead person.
Yes.
And she says, "Oh, it's easy. You just got to hold it and do it this way."
Yeah, right. She tells you it's not her first rodeo.
Right.
And however, then both Rosa and Delgadina disappear,
They disappear. Right.
and he falls apart.
Right.
Now, here is where I told you that driving up here today, I listened to this this podcast with these three drunk girls talking about this book.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they mentioned that I thought was kind of interesting was the parallels between the cat and Delgadina.
Well,
Because
that
the
didn't
cat
get me, but go ahead.
the cat also runs away at various times and
Yes.
comes back, right?
Ah,
and according
that's
to these
pretty good.
girls, which I never noticed in the story, I'd have to check. According to these girls, there's like a parallelism between when Delgadina is around and when the cat is around and when the cat runs away and when Delgadina is gone. So that is kind of interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, so after the murder, both the madam and Delgadina are gone for an extended period of time, and he kind of falls apart.
Right. He's wearing his same old coveralls. He's not changing his clothes. Shows
Right.
up at the office, smelly and unshaven.
She starts looking for her. He goes to the button factory.
Goes to the button.
Yeah, he goes.
And then somebody says, "Hey, you're the guy who writes those love columns."
Yeah.
Right. So he's now becoming a bit of a celebrity,
Right.
right? That he had never, because his stories have become so much better, so much more popular, and then he hears a story about a girl who was hit by a bike.
Oh, right.
And
he's
so he goes to the morgue,
distraught about it.
And he's like, "That's not her."
But before that, he sees somebody on the street and he sort of chases her down, and then finally catches up with her. And then he's like, "What am I doing? Even if I ran into her, I wouldn't know what she looked like.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to see her. I wouldn't be able to recognize who this person was."
Yeah, which illustrates the sort of unreality of this girl. He doesn't really speak with her much.
Yeah.
He prefers her asleep. He really doesn't know what she looks like. He thinks that it's weird that she has birthdays. I mean, she's obviously not a real human being in his mind.
Right. Well, I was gonna put on my feminist literary theory hat and say, yeah, this girl's not real to him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Because there's such thing as a feminist theory hat. It's really feminist theory blinders, I think.
So Rosa gets back into town.
Yeah.
Calls him up and says,
She's back.
Says, all right, I'm back, and all right, where's the gal? Hold on, give it easy there.
Right. She'll find
Put
her.
your pants on. And he gets his first night since...
For a long time, right? She's been gone for a while. He gets his first night back, and it turns out to be quite a catastrophe.
Yes, because...
Oh, that's right.
She's all dolled up.
She's all dolled up. She's
older.
Fake eyelashes.
Right? Yeah. She's got jewelry on.
Her breasts are starting to fill out.
And this is my favorite part: is how jealousy can get you to create this false truth.
Yeah.
Like, I know exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I've totally figured it out.
Yes.
Right? What has happened is that she sold the girl's virginity to one of her big shot clients in exchange for being cleared of the crime.
Yeah.
And so he's just 100%.
He's making everything up.
100% sure. He's so sure of it that he flies off in a rage and just wrecks the joint.
Right, yeah.
Wait, what crime was that? Was that the murder, or was it the crime?
No. It was not the murder. It was afterwards. So he's
having a young girl in the whorehouse.
Well,
Finding a young girl in the whorehouse.
He's really upset that he thinks her virginity has been sold to somebody else. So now it totally destroys his image of the whole situation.
Rosa went someplace, and the girl was just at home, but nobody knows where that is. Right. But in his mind, he's like, I know exactly what happened. You took the girl to, off to hide someplace, and the only way that you could cover for the guy who committed the murder was to turn her into the whore, and I mean, it was a very elaborate.
He's inventing it all in his head.
It's all in his head.
Yes, but it shows. It's funny because this guy's 90 years old and he's acting like a 14.
He's a 14-year-old jealous rage,
inventing all this crazy stuff in his head. Yeah,
and he's also upset that she's changed.
Yes,
she
seems to have changed. Right,
year and a half later during the time when women change.
Mm-hmm. And so, she has actually changed, but she has also seemed to have changed by the lipstick and the eyeliner
and the fake jewelry and all of that. And during
he yells at her.
Yeah, and then before they actually get back together again, he runs into a former whore, Casilda Armenta.
Oh, that's right. They have a day together.
And they go off, and now she's married to. After she retired from whoring, she met a Chinaman and a Chinaman farmer, right. And he goes out to the farming estate and kind of tells a story to her, and she's like, "You go find that woman, and you go make an honest woman or whatever." He's like, I've never seen you like this. You finally found love, and.
Well, she says you got to go make love with her. You got to go have sex with her.
Yeah, but even her and Rosa are like, give it to her good and hard. He's like, wait, the reason I've got to this state of understanding what love is by not doing that. Yeah, which is what I've done since I was 12 years old. I was 12 and 90.
Very interesting because in one sense, this is a very raunchy book.
Right.
Right. It's talking about whores and visiting whores and all this kind of stuff. But on the other hand, it's presenting a very interesting picture of love.
Right.
That real love is with a virgin, with somebody that you're not trying to take advantage of, that you're not paying. It's presenting, in some respects, a very conservative, traditional view of love. And at exactly the same time,
while telling the story of a womanizing man who has no idea what love is.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a very interesting confusion of all those things.
So after, so he figures it out. Then he's trying to figure out how to pay Rosa back for all the damage he did, and so he finally has to sell his family's jewels.
Oh, right, and they turn out to be fake.
Well, they turned out to be fake because his mother sold the stones to pay the bills during hard times, and then they had fake stones put in its
Exactly,
place.
and they're like, and the jeweler's like, you know what?
It happens a lot.
I've seen this 1,000 times.
Is there any symbolism there?
You sub out the real jewels for fakes, and go on as if you hadn't. Go on as if you're still wearing the same jewels you always had. Yeah. There probably is an interesting metaphor going on there.
It's what you cling on to is not what you think it is, and it's been screwed up by experience.
But maybe the parallelism there is he's been going after the fake jewelry, the whores, all his life.
That's pretty good.
And now he's finally, trying to find the real gem.
Right.
Well,
and the real gem that he.
But the reader knows that he's not finding the real gem because she is a young prostitute.
Yes. Exactly.
That he's never talked to. He can't.
That
he would not recognize on the street.
Yes, there's a lot of contradictions and confusions going on. But yeah, that's very true.
All right, so. So what happens in the end? So
eventually they get together and things seem to. It seems as if, according to Rosa Cabarcas, the madam, the girl actually falls in love with the guy.
Right. So he's hesitant about the whole thing again. Oh no, they both agree that in their old age they're going to leave everything to her.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? And then, do you think she'll agree? Says Rosa. Says narrator. Oh, my sad scholar. It's all right for you to be old, but not an asshole. That poor creature's head over heels in love with you.
Yeah.
So she wasn't entirely asleep all this time, right? So she was lying there and being courted in the oddest way of an old man lying naked, pretending to be asleep, while an old man, tries to educate you in both love letters on the mirror and music and paintings and whatever,
and the letters he writes in the paper and the art he puts on the wall and all these other
yes, and she's illiterate, so she's barely learning how to read through his
writings on the
lipstick
mirror.
notes.
He is courting her.
Yes.
Where really she was just a transaction. She was just a 90th birthday present.
Right.
But now he's actually courting her and trying to woo her, which is kind of strange.
For the first time in his life.
Right. Yeah.
But he wasn't really courting her. He was just watching her. There was a point that he wouldn't. There was a point that he wouldn't step over. There was a point that he would just. He was very. He knew that if he did anything, then it would be over.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, he was courting her without knowing that he was courting her. Because he already said earlier that he was terrible at seduction, and basically that's why he spent his whole life paying for, paying for fake love.
Yeah.
And what's his self-assessment here on 65?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty brutal, actually.
Yes, it is. He does.
So here we go. Thanks to her, I confronted my inner self for the first time as my 90th year went by. I discovered that my obsession for having each thing in the right place, each subject at the right time, each word in the right style, was not the well-deserved reward of an ordered mind, but just the opposite. A complete system of pretense invented by me to hide the disorder of my nature. Mm-hmm. I discovered that I am not disciplined out of virtue, but as a reaction to my negligence. That I appear generous in order to conceal my meanness. That I pass myself off as prudent because I am evil-minded. That I am conciliatory in order not to succumb to my repressed rage. That I am punctual only to hide how little I care about other people's time. That was a good one.
That's good.
I learned, in short, that love is not a condition of the spirit, but a sign of the zodiac.
Yeah, so he got, there's some self-revelation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and you don't. It's very weird because on the one hand, you don't want to defend this guy. You don't want to. You don't want to see the good in him. You want to think, what a loser of a
all
guy.
right, well, you want to get to the big question
Yeah,
here?
let's get to the big question.
So the big question is when you read the one-word summary, which is basically the opening sentence.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, so before I even read the first sentence, the summary is basically what the first sentence is, right? The year I turned 90, I wanted to give myself the gift of a night of wild love with an adolescent virgin. And I'm going, how is Marquez going to pull this off without sounding rapey and pervy and...
Because it is rapey and pervy. Because she's 14 years old.
Yes, and you know the sexual exploitation of a destitute girl. Because I mean,
Right.
we say that she's a prostitute, she's a whore. She actually isn't.
Right.
She's willing to be.
She gets recruited
Yes.
by the madam because the poor girl isn't making enough money.
Yeah,
and she's trying
exactly.
To, yeah.
So she's on her way to being a prostitute and a whore because of him, in a way. And so my question to you, gentlemen, is does he pull it off? Were you able to read it without being squeamish due to its rapey perviness?
No, I thought.
You couldn't get past it?
Well, not that I couldn't get past it.
It was lingering.
It was just always there.
Yeah.
Always there in the background of the story.
Yeah,
You're talking about a 14-year-old girl, for heaven's sakes.
Yes.
You know? I mean,
And that's deliberate.
yes.
You know?
Yes.
Well, exactly,
I
because
think that's deliberate.
I think you're right, because I think the story would have gone just as well with a 19-year-old virgin.
Which I don't think would have made it that much better, by the way.
You don't...
14 through 19, yeah. You know,
Well,
you
I
might
think
not
in
get
our
thrown
modern
jail.
sensibility, it'd be a little less pervy
Yeah.
and a little less rapey.
Well,
but-
I mean, certainly there's
still-
a
At
difference.
least it would be against the wall. Let's
Yes,
just say that much.
certainly there's a difference between a 14-year-old and a 19-year-old. A 14-year-old cannot give consent, right? In our legal structure,
legally.
a 14-year-old cannot give consent. A 19-year-old can. So in that respect,
When I was
it would be
15, it
different.
seemed like they were...
It seemed that way.
They could give consent, but
but also just the huge age difference makes the whole relationship puts a different spin on the whole relationship. Oh, let's say he's 90 and she's 25, right? Okay, how much longer is he going to live? Right? So he's going to fall in love with this girl. They're going to live together or whatever. blah, blah, blah.
Yes, right. So the gap is so monstrous
Yeah.
that all of the idea of the pure love, that whole story could have been told that way.
Yes.
But he chose to make it 14.
Yes.
And this is not like, well, you know, it was an 18th century novel, and that's not they wrote it in 2004.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's an old man. He's a man of his.
perfectly well.
He's a man of his time.
No,
That's 2004.
He knows perfectly well that.
Yes,
having
that
a relationship
14
with 14 is
harsh.
wrong. Yeah.
So what's going on here? Why make that decision, Gabrielle?
Well, let me just turn the tables. I'll put my feminist literary hat on again.
Blinders.
Could he have pulled it off if the narrator was 18, 19?
I'm saying
And going through this?
I'm saying it would still be the same story.
Would
But what? But
And it,
but what?
in a
But
sense,
he's
it wouldn't-
choosing.
See, I think
He's choosing to make this
Yes.
to make the reader uncomfortable.
the reason
Yeah.
he chose a 14-year-old is what's happening here is this 90-year-old man is not falling in love with a woman. He's falling in love with an idea.
Yes.
He's falling in love with an idealized vision of someone.
Right.
Right.
And a 14-year-old is much more of a clean slate than an 18-year-old.
Right,
For the
but
25-year-old, she's
But
now
falling in
a
love
young
with the-
woman with adult experiences,
Yeah.
etc.
Right.
But yeah, again, falling in love with an idea of the woman has total ramifications on everybody, you know. So it says something to reality. You can't, whatever you do is going to have an impact on somebody in somehow, some way. And, you know, by having this fantasy that he's having, you know, was it, you know, what was the ramifications? out there. Well, I mean, you could,
Well, there was the possibility of jail time.
well, for him and for her,
And
what,
for
what was it
Rosa
for her? I mean,
Cabarcus. Yeah, apparently
and
she would get shut down if she.
right. He's participating in this whole whole prostitute whoring whorehouse thing.
I think the idea of having her be 14 is part of this whole image of him falling in love with an idea. Yeah. And it was necessary. It's disturbing and it bothers you, and you're thinking the whole time you're reading it, you're thinking she's 14, but it fits with the
fact that he never. I mean, he does do some kissing and some stroking and some fondling, but the fact that he doesn't really take full advantage of the situation.
It fits with this theme of it, which is here's this guy who's been having this fake love all his life. And finally actually falls in love. And he's falling in love with an idea, not an actual person. Yeah. I think the fact she's 14 fits into that.
And so he he wrote this when he was 77. So this was something that's, makes an old man thinking about reflecting on his own mortality and, what...
Well, right, his own life and what's meaningful in life, For him, it was whoring 514 women, important and meaningful in his life.
No.
And why all of a sudden did Delgadita become meaningful in his life?
Yeah.
And he's doing the same thing. I mean, he's just whoring the same way with Delgadita than he is with the other 514
Well, except
women.
that he never really...
Except for he finally has the emotional connection that he's never had before.
The first time he ever fell in love.
Right.
When he's 9 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, it's such a juvenile relationship because he never talks to her. He can't look. He doesn't know really what she looks like. It's only what's on his mind. He's in love with. He's in love with the idea, like you said. Yeah. And. I think he was really pathetic, actually.
Well, that's my question.
An absolute pathetic character.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
almost as bad as
find the books,
Notes from Underground.
You don't find a book. You don't find a certain fairy tale ending where No. Then after all the old man finally finds the thing he was looking for and then dies happily ever after. Or the other thing is, it's kind of sad. A person was never able to, who took it until I can understand, like at age 50, after your 514th, and you realize you've already passed your time to have the family that you were supposed to have, right. And you're realizing, what have I been doing all this time? Yeah. And you went another 40. It wasn't until you're 90 that you went, you know what? Maybe I haven't lived the life I should have lived. Yeah. That I agree is pathetic.
Right. I agree with Longinus that he's pathetic. He's a pathetic character.
It's almost like he found what he found love, and it was a fake, just like his Jules.
But in a way, saying that it was.
But he's acknowledging. He goes, "I effed this up."
Yeah, he doesn't do the whole thing, right?
But I acknowledge that love is a real thing that I missed out on, and the best I can do now is this.
I don't think there's that remorse. I don't think he has the ability to have that remorse. I think he's just.
I find him a little less admirable than I do. Admirable is not the right word. But, sympathetic.
He's admirable. He's admirable in the sense that he.
Just give me sympathetic. That's all I'm asking for. Right?
Yeah, well, sure, but he's an incredible, charming man. He is a scholar. He's very. People love him for his columns. He's popular. He's successful. Except for this,
and he gave
successful,
and it doesn't even seem like he's ever tried. Because even the women that slept with him without money, he's like, I'm not really interested in that. Here, let me give you some money.
Right.
So he was just terrible at it, and never even tried. It doesn't seem to have a mature. He even says earlier that he's going to die alone in the bed that he was born in. I mean, how was this more pathetic than that?
Right.
It's so okay. We need to wrap this up. So
can I get in my whorehouse story?
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. So this when I think of a person paying for sex all the time, I think about somebody going down here on Route 1 and picking up some broad and going to some disgusting motel for an hour.
Right.
It's rents by the hour. But this kind of gives that sort of South American, early 20th century feel that, brothels is a kind of a lifestyle choice, whatever that. Would you like to hear the time I went to a Mexican whorehouse?
I would.
Okay, so I'm in Guadalajara and I'm with two friends who are also students, Patrick from California and Richard from Washington, D.C., and we go to a cockfight first.
Okay.
Which is also not like anything you can think of, which is some sleazy barn somewhere. No. It's an arena.
Yeah.
It's fair, and there are musical acts.
Yeah.
You can bet on them. We played bingo and won money. We won money at this, and Richard is kind of becoming a little bit annoying because he's so horny.
Yeah.
And we just want to hang out and have fun, and he just wants to talk about when am I going to get laid. So we're like, well, I've heard about this place.
Oh,
And
God.
so we get a cab, we go over there, you pull up in front, and men in white shirts, black slacks, and black bow ties come and open the door for you.
Right.
The only place I'd ever had that kind of street service.
Concierge
Yes,
experience,
concierge, yes.
yes. Yeah.
And then you go in, and it's a nightclub. So there are round tables everywhere. There's a stage, band playing. A comedian comes out with a ventriloquist dummy,
Right.
and there are.
It's not my image at all of a whorehouse.
Exactly. So then you have waitresses come to your table, and then you have waitresses who are not bringing beers but bringing their services. And Richard, I don't know what he does. He negotiates his. I don't know. He disappears.
Yeah.
There's some winding stairs. The second, it's very high ceilings, so you can see. It's like you can see where the second floor is, right? The rooms around. And disappears in one of those rooms, and Patrick and I pretend to understand the jokes of the ventriloquist, have some beers, and after I don't know how much time, Richard comes back in a much better mood.
Yes. Okay.
And so, I mean, this is obviously very above board. But is it? I you know what? I should have to. Well, Mrs. Pigweed wouldn't even know the answer to this, but she could find out for me. Is this just?
Is it legal?
Is it just accepted that this is how things that it works like this, or is it like literally on the books, legal, and there's all women have to have checkups, or
Right.
like is it regulated like an industry, or is it just something that nobody cares about? But obviously, this, like you say, this doesn't sound like the disgusting whorehouse.
Yeah.
It's more like Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Well, I don't know. I in my mind, the whorehouse in this book was always kind of seedy. It wasn't as high class as the place you're talking
Doesn't
about.
seem like there was entertainment and drinks going on there.
Right. But
But it did tend to. The patrons were the upper crust of the.
Yeah. So
town.
this reminds me a little bit of Pearly Things, Pearl Davis.
All right.
She likes to talk about. I'm not talking about the way things ought to be. I'm talking about the way things are.
Yeah.
And the way things are is prostitution has been going on for forever. Forever. And that's the way it is. And you can say it's not good, and I will say it's not good. I don't think prostitution. I don't like prostitution, but it's the way things have always been. And you're going to have these kinds of situations. You're going to have the seedy one for this book, and you're going to have the fancy high end one.
But how about, isn't there a question of are women being exploited for the pleasure of men, or are women exploiting men for their
Who's exploiting who?
Yeah.
That's a hard question to me.
And Pearl would be like, you guys think this is a one-way street.
No, it's not. And the thing is, everybody's being exploited. The women, yes, the women are being exploited, but so are the men.
Yeah, they're recognizing the weakness of men and taking
advantage of it. That's right. Yeah. So there's no winner and there's no.
In Las Vegas, prostitution's legal, right?
Apparently not in Las Vegas, but right outside.
The
Las
next
Vegas.
county over.
Okay.
It has.
And up in Canada, in Montreal, it's legal, right?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know that one.
But I'm sure I'm I'm sure that will be, now with the legalized drugs and pretty much anything and crime.
Yeah.
I'm sure that'll be.
I'm sure it'll be great. It'll be good
next.
for the city.
Yeah, right. The city to go like, look how much money we could get for this, and all the great things we can do for solving all of our problems.
Well,
because we're
Henry
so good at
Winkler
it.
in Night Shift had a dental plan for the prostitutes, and he had scholarship funds. And
All right. Okay. So very good. That was a
all right,
long one, but
all right.
good show.
That is, and let me hear you say his name with the proper accent.
Okay. Marquez.
Marquez. Yes.
Marquez.
No, I know it's almost impossible to not say it. It's like Tijuana.
Marquez. Come on.
It's Tijuana and Marquez.
Marquez.
Yeah, there you go.
Marquez,
Yeah,
there you go.
exactly.
Here we go. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.